Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to the Junior Saloon Car Championship's official E-Series as we head to the northeast of the United Kingdom for the next two races in what is turning out to be a very exciting championship, just as we all predicted when we kicked things off a few weeks ago. My name is Andy McEwen, here to talk you through all of the action alongside the usual team. Mick Sutton, our series organiser, has been busy working behind the scenes. Scott Thorne, our race director and safety car driver, likewise, and Tom O'Farrell, our broadcast director, bringing you these stunning pictures of what is a stunning track, Croft, up in the northeast of the UK, the host venue for this midway point of the championship, a 7-week championship. We've had 3 rounds already, starting on the Silverstone International Circuit towards the end of February. Then we headed to Donington Park. That really did produce some of the best racing of the season so far. And a week ago, the tight little bull ring at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, which produced the high drama that we expected it to. And now we head to another really tight, fiddly circuit at Croft. Then we head to Alton Park in a week's time, the Island Circuit, taking us properly into the second half of the season before we descend upon the Snetterton 300 circuit on the 30th of March for the penultimate round. And it all comes to a conclusion at Thruxton on the 6th of April. And so far, very, very hard to predict who it is who will be taking the championship honours when we get to Thruxton come season's end. We're getting a slightly clearer picture round by round, but it's still only a 19-point lead for our championship leader, and CJ Morgan, who actually lost a couple of points at Brands Hatch, more on that later, but a race victory in race 1, a third in race 2, sees him 19 points clear of Riley Bishop. Alexander Mostaff was a race victor in the second race last time at Brands Hatch, also received the Driver of the Round award too, and moved up into third place just ahead of Jordan Taylor, with Lewis Stannard completing the top 5 ahead of Harley Connolly, Nathan Jensen, Jamie Petters, James Sherrington, and Levine Kishaw, who has not been able to commit to every round but has been a front runner whenever he has raced with us. Zach Palmer, Luke Sintler next. A long list of drivers. We've had, I think, getting on for 20 of them who have competed with us at some point this season. Indeed, yes, 19 drivers who have raced, and all of them have managed to pick up at least 1 championship point up to this stage, and so we'll have to wait and see how far up the order some of those towards the bottom are able to climb. If they can get near the top of the championship table, then they could be in for some prizes come the end of the season. The top 3 drivers all receiving trophies come the end of the season, plus cash prizes, £100 for third place, £200 for second place driver, and the champion will receive either £300 or an Optics 31.5-inch curved gaming monitor. That's the driver's choice, whether they want the cash or whether they want to upgrade their sim racing setup with that curved gaming monitor, a real game changer, curved monitors, and I'm sure our championship winning driver will be keen to get their hands on it. There is also the Driver of the Round, which I mentioned went to Alex Mostav after Brands Hatch, and a pair of sim racing gloves will be donated to the Driver of the Round each week, courtesy of our championship sponsors, FreeM. And remember that we will be taking your suggestions in the YouTube chat as well for who you think should be Driver of the Round, be that for a particularly solid performance over the night, maybe a race win or 2, or perhaps just for being the most exciting driver out on the track. Whatever you think, do let us know, and we'll take that into consideration. So, the stage set then for what is set to be a really important night of racing, I think. As I mentioned, we're into the second half of the season now, and very, very close indeed the situation towards the front of the field. I would anticipate that CJ Morgan will be definitely hoping to increase that margin. 19 points is healthy, but not super comfortable, and Riley Bishop more than capable of closing that gap, I think. Riley, you kind of feel, has been knocking on the door of greatness so far this season, but for whatever reason hasn't quite been able to hit the same sort of consistency that CJ has. Consistency is what will win you championships. Winning races is great, but it's the days where you don't win that you really discover how good you are, and drivers like CJ Morgan have proven with pretty much a 100% podium finishing record that consistency is absolutely their game plan, and we'll see whether CJ can continue that here tonight. I mentioned that he lost a few points in the Brands Hatch races, specifically talking about race number 2, where he was actually given a post-race penalty for some contact with Riley Bishop. The two of them had a pretty entertaining battle for second place throughout that race. There was a small bit of contact through Paddock Hill Bend. CJ Morgan adjudged to have been at fault, and so he was docked 2.7 seconds to drop him back behind Riley Bishop. So Bishop picked up second, CJ ending up with a third place finish. and that made a small difference to his points haul at the end of that race, but not too much really. 22 points for finishing second, 20 points for claiming a third place finish. It's 25, of course, for a race win, plus a bonus point for the fastest lap, and a bonus point available in this qualifying session, which is ongoing. The fastest driver at the end of this 15-minute qualifying session will not only get the luxury of track position into turn 1, but also taking home a championship point, which could prove crucial. As you can see, drivers really looking to try and work together actually in this qualifying session. The slipstream in these cars pretty powerful. I'm surprised of all the tracks that we've raced at that it's Croft where they're really trying to work that slipstream. We've been to some much faster and more open tracks than Croft, but they're perhaps starting to cotton on now to the fact that this is how you set a really quick lap time. CJ Morgan, though, is the man pulling the train around the track. He's down in 6th place at the moment, set to improve, I think, here. One car getting very sideways at the back of the group, and in fact CJ will not improve because a poor middle sector leads him to back off and try to pull in behind Zach Palmer, and in fact he may even be heading for the pit lane. Yes, he is. So the championship leader, after his first run in the qualifying session, is not going to find his way anywhere near the top of the order. Still top half dozen, I suppose, but you'd imagine some other drivers will get into that 1.1 second bracket between pole and what is now 6th place. So CJ will change the tyres, go back out again, and try his look at setting an even faster lap time. Alex Mostav, though, the man on the move really at the moment in the championship with that really impressive run at Brands Hatch, moving up into 3rd place now. He's on 86 championship points. Second is Riley Bishop. He's on 100, so that's a 14-point gap between the two, plus then the extra 19 to CJ Morgan. So Mostav really needs every point that he can get in order to properly put himself into the championship conversation. Of course, if CJ Morgan were to have an off night here at Croft, then that could really change things around. So Alexander will be definitely looking to try and put together another strong night as he had at Brands Hatch. As I said, had the race win in race 2, but that came off the back of a disappointing race 1 where he had to come into the pit lane, I think because he had miscalculated the fuel, which has been a bit of a theme this season actually, and he'll be hoping that he's got the fuel calculations right here tonight. Palmer through the right-hander at Sunny out, and we can see how tight, technical and demanding this Croft circuit is. Zach Palmer looking quick here as well, and as he turns through the final complex, he's about 3.5 tenths off the fastest lap through sector 1, but he's 1.5, in fact 1.5 seconds off the pace on his current form. Personal best in sector 1, not in sector 2 though. It takes a very wide line through the hairpin to try and cut back to carry the speed down the pit straight for the start of the next lap. So sacrificed the end of that lap to try to get a really good start to the next one, but in doing so almost got in the way of another car that was coming through on the inside line. And also, of course, throws away any chance for a meaningful improvement that time around. So 149 was not an improvement, and he will stay in 8th place. On board with Jordan Taylor, though, and as he exits the final hairpin, let's take a ride on board, shall we, around the Croft circuit. Very different kind of track to anything that we've raced at so far. Very narrow, very old school, no tarmac runoff areas. It's grass, gravel, and then tyre barriers. If you're lucky, if you're not, you end up in a farmer's field down at the end of the back straight. This is the front straight, though, into this really tricky pinch point at Clervaux. Hammer the curbs. Oh, that is Riley Bishop pointing the wrong way on the left-hand side as they turn into Hawthorne. Way wide over the white line. They have been warned about track limits in specific parts of the track ahead of tonight, so hopefully they'll stick to the track limits rules. Flat out then through the chicane. Now we're down that back straight into probably the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit down at Tower. Really difficult bumpy braking zone here. You've got to position the car on the left, but look at the rise and fall in the track as you're trying to get the car slowed down. And in fact, for Jordan Taylor, he couldn't get the car slowed down, ran out wide, and CJ Morgan, who he was towing down the back straight a little bit, will nip through on the inside line. So Jordan Taylor's lap, I'm afraid, has now gone from him. He needs to be careful not to get in the way here. That's a shame, though, because so far to that point, that had been a very entertaining on-board lap. Through the Jim Clark S is not quite at full speed. That would be flat out on a proper flying lap. So too with the right-hand kink at Barcroft, but then you're pretty much immediately hard onto the brakes into the Sunny complex. A little bit of camber through the right-hander, which means you can carry a bit more speed through that corner than you might imagine. Not so much through Sunny out, though. That's a really important turn to get the speed onto this short shoot towards the final complex of corners, where again you can overtake if you're feeling brave. Certainly good for side-by-side racing here. The ever-tightening left-hander at the entry to the complex, then this hook to the right. Avoid the tyre stack on the inside line, and don't let the car run out too wide. Stay to the right-hand side of the road, hit the brakes into the hairpin. Jordan Taylor taking that wide line in, full steering lock, but a bit too eager on the throttle, and didn't really get the best run onto the pit straight. So again, tried to set himself up nicely for the next lap, but that didn't quite work out. What he did do, though, was towed CJ Morgan to a personal best lap of the session so far. CJ Morgan into the top 5 now. Zach Palmer has also improved to 3rd position on the previous lap, and I believe is going quickly again on his next lap, and only needs to find 100th of a second or so to move up onto the front row, but he's got it all wrong down through Tower, and Zach Palmer not the only one bouncing over the grass down to the right-hander at the end of the back straight. He will again push the indicator on. Wow, that really is courteous driving for a teenager, and gets well out of everybody's way, but that's a shame. Might have been able to challenge for a front row starting position had he been able to put the rest of that lap together. So at the moment then, Jordan Taylor set for pole position by a whopping, well, 5.5 tenths. That's a big, big advantage to have over Mosthav second, Zach Palmer 3rd, Luke Sintler is there in 4th position ahead of CJ Morgan and Levine Kishaw. Those two had some really good battles at Silverstone at the season opener. Harley Connolly down in 7th after that spin that we caught the back end of at Clervaux. Lewis Stannard is 8th ahead of Will Crudson, made his debut a week ago at Brands Hatch, and he gets demoted now to 10th because Nathan Jensen comes through into 9th, and Josh Salvadori, who we're following, down to 11th. Josh looked as though he might have been improving, but no, he's had a very slow middle sector. He continues to pull out of people's way through the final few corners. That is, I think, Zach Palmer in front of him, and again Palmer having made a mistake on that lap, sweeping out wide through the hairpin, but he's not going to have time to get to the line because the time ticks down to 0. The checkered flag is out, and unless you've already started the lap by that point, your qualifying session is now over. So Alexander Mosthav and Zach Palmer both taking the checkered flag there. Luke Sintler, I think, was the last one through, and he is hammering the curbs through that first sector. That was pretty spectacular stuff. Really threading the eye of the needle there between the tyre stacks, again down here at the chicane, where they've been warned about taking too much curb and grass on the inside apexes. Luke Sintler pushing hard. Let's see what the sector times look like for the driver currently 4th, but it's all so close, isn't it? He's only a tenth and a bit away from the front row, although that goalpost has moved recently, with Mosthav improving by the best part of a tenth of a second, so further securing second place there on what was his final lap of the session. And then the last driver likely to improve turns his way through those Jim Clark S's, another part of the track where they've been told not to cut the corners too much. I'm not convinced Luke Sintler got the memo. That was a lot of grass tracking through the left-hander in particular. Now towards Barcraft and Sunny, there's another car going quite slowly ahead. He'll be hoping that that car doesn't get in the way. Hops over the curb again through Sunny in. Really, really technically demanding circuit this. It looks as though Luke has backed off though. Yes, he has. So Luke pulling over to the side of the road, going no further in the qualifying session. Nathan Jensen is bailing for the pit lane as well. So I think that is qualifying maybe done. Well, Charlie Constable is still pushing on. 15th at the moment, slowest driver on the track. You can see that he hasn't really had a clear lap in this session because he's the best part of 2 seconds slower than the next driver, Riley Bishop, who is again further down than you might expect. Is Constable going to complete the lap, hooks over the curb and keeps to the left ahead to the pit lane. So Charlie Constable will not improve, and nobody is going to be able to beat Jordan Taylor, who has pole position here at Croft, at a circuit where it could be particularly beneficial to have that track position advantage. Not the easiest of places to overtake. Let's get the thoughts, shall we, of our pole sitter, because Jordan Taylor joins us now in the commentary box. Jordan, congratulations. Pole position, and not by a small margin either. You've got to be very, very happy with that.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. It's been a long time coming. I've been close in the Brands and Donington, just haven't had enough, and finally I managed to get it by quite a big margin, as you said.
This is one of those tracks, though, I think, which rewards technical drivers, yes, but a little bit of commitment too, especially out the back part of the circuit. Is that something that you would say is one of your strengths?
Well, I guess so, as you can see on the timing, but I mean, it's just about putting, because it's such a long lap, it's just making sure you put all them corners together and then slowly you build up the time.
Yeah, as I said, quite a long lap, quite a technically demanding one too, and not the easiest place to overtake. So the start is going to be crucial here. What's the best technique, do you think, for getting these cars off the line?
Not To be honest, I haven't done any sort of practice for this, so I'm just going to wing it and see how it goes.
Well, if you arrive at turn 1 in the race lead, then that's going to be extra frustrating for the other drivers, isn't it? You've not been practicing and still getting off the line really well. Obviously, with 2 races tonight, and it's important for you to try and get a good points haul, isn't it, as well? So, do you think you're still in this championship battle at all? 4th place, not a million miles back.
Yeah, considering I missed the first round, I think I have a chance of winning it, but it's just seeing how CJ does in these next coming rounds. It's just all to play for still.
It is indeed. Jordan, we'll let you go and finish your pre-race preparations, but congratulations on the pole position and best of luck for this first race.
Cheers, Andy.
Jordan Taylor then gets the pole position, as he said, his first of the season, and yes, he reminded me that he came very close to doing this a week ago at Brands Hatch. He was quick at Donington as well, where he made his debut. Referenced the fact that he missed Silverstone, which actually wasn't the end of the world because we only had 1 race at Silverstone, everywhere else reverting to the 2-race format. And so if you were going to miss a round, as it turned out, that first week was probably the one to miss. So, cars lining up on the grid. Let's remind ourselves how they'll line up for our first 20-minute race of the weekend. It's the black car of Jordan Taylor who has that pole position, and alongside him is CJ Morgan. And that's a very tasty front row of the grid, isn't it? Not sure who's going to win that battle into turn 1. Then it's Zach Palmer with Luke Sintler alongside him on row 2. And then CJ Morgan, because actually, sorry, it's Alexander Mostav on the front row, isn't it? Getting those 2 cars mixed up. So CJ 5th, Levine Kishore 6th. Those 2 who were inseparable at Silverstone, continuing to be here at Croft. Then the yellow and black car is Harley Connolly, Lewis Stannard alongside him in the red, white and blue. And then Nathan Jensen and Will Crudson, the all-yellow car, to complete the top 10. Josh Salvadori is next. James Sherrington, who wasn't sure he was going to make it tonight, but he has, and he has qualified 12th ahead of Riley Bishop and Jensen Bell, the turquoise-coloured car. And then you've got Charlie Constable at the back of the grid. So a 15-car grid here, I believe. Yes, 15 cars set to take the start. 20 minutes on the clock, and of course we do it all again for race 2, but with a full reversed grid. So anybody who finishes race 1 on the lead lap gets reversed for the grid for race 2, and that's really what saved Alex Mostav's evening a week ago at Brands Hatch. Had that unscheduled pit stop in race 1, but was at least able to start near the front and dominated the second race. Here we go then, halfway point of the Junior Saloon Car Championship's official eSeries here on Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. The red lights are on. Jordan Taylor and Alex Mostav neck and neck on the front row of the grid. The lights go out and the first car to move is Jordan Taylor, but then the second phase of the start, certainly better for Mostav. So Mostav will have that advantage into turn 1. Perhaps a bit more practice of starts might be beneficial for Jordan in the future. Good reactions, but just a little bit bogging down, I think, on the run to turn 1. And in fact, Zach Palmer having a go at getting around the outside of him as well. Now, hold your breath, everybody. Clervaux is notorious for lap 1 incidents. 2 cars are off already. James Sherrington spat off to the left, and that is Harley Connolly, who has spat off to the right. 2 separate incidents. In fact, there is James Sherrington only now rejoining the track, having skipped most of the first sector, but doesn't gain any advantage from it. So, all things considered, that could have been a lot worse. It's a real funnel through those first couple of corners. So easy to bang door, bang wheels, and end up pointing the wrong way. 2 cars off, one of them severely delayed in Harley Connolly, but James Sherrington luckily able to tag on to the back of the queue. Out of tower then for the first time, must have the leader. The battle really is on for second. Jordan Taylor and Zach Palmer. CJ Morgan 4th ahead of Luke Sintler. That's significant. CJ Morgan gaining a place from where he started, the championship leader, but doesn't seem to quite have the outright pace tonight, and this is something that I in a way hoped we would see as the season went on. Nothing against CJ, but we wanted to see a higher level of competition at the front of the field. CJ absolutely dominated at Silverstone. He was very quick at Donington Park, but then last time out at Brands Hatch, really we felt that perhaps other drivers were starting to match him, and that is what we anticipated. A junior series, many of these drivers in their first ever esports competition. They will inevitably get quicker with every race that goes by. There are always drivers who get out of the blocks quickly. It's nice now to see more and more of them getting up there and challenging for race wins. That was Charlie Constable. Oh, and he's head first into the tyre stack. Those things don't move in the sim, and gets collected by James Sherrington, who's had a very lively opening lap. It was Riley Bishop, I think, who elbowed aside Charlie Constable as they came through the penultimate corner. And Charlie's car, you would imagine, is pretty heavily damaged after headbutting that tyre stack in the way that it did. Across the line we go though. End of lap 1. Must have leading the way. And it's a strong opening lap. 5 or 6 tenths of a second his advantage over Jordan Taylor. But we know that Jordan had this big advantage in qualifying. 6 tenths of a second nearly over Mostave. And I would suggest that he's already starting to put that to good effect. He's reeling in the race leader over the first part of this second lap. And he'll get a nice slipstream down the back straight as well. Expect that battle to be on before too much longer. Good chopping and changing going on further back. Will Crudson and Nathan Jensen there were debating 8th position, with Crudson dropping in behind. Side by side here as well, Josh Salvadori is looking up the inside of Jensen Bell. We're on board with Josh. He's got that inside line for Tower Corner. Best overtaking opportunity on the track, and that is why, because once you get to the inside, as long as you can brake later than the car to your outside, you should get to the apex first and claim the place, as Josh does. Salvadori through into 11th position. Jim Clark S's comes of Levine Kishore, started side by side with CJ Morgan, remember, on row 3, so CJ gained a place, Levine lost one to Lewis Stannard, and that's why there's now a couple of cars between them as they head through Sunny Inn. Pixelate racing driver Levine Kishore, front runner, as I've said, every time really that he's raced, although Brands Hatch didn't go super well for Levine, it must be said, but didn't quite seem to have the ultimate speed there. 7th in race 2 and slightly worse, in fact 11th in race 1, but improving there with a lovely move up the inside of Lewis Stannard. But of course the next corner at the hairpin is a left-hander, and so Stannard, oh well, will get the place back and gets served into the hairpin for his troubles. But don't think the position will change, so no harm, no foul. Nathan Jensen meanwhile bringing Riley Bishop with him, the inside of Will Crudson. Crudson just slipping back a little bit on this lap. In fact, I think he got back ahead of Nathan Jensen at some point, hadn't he? But Nathan reclaims the place. Crudson going with him. Now this is for the race leader, Jordan Taylor, round the outside at turn 1. How on earth did he do that? Jordan Taylor has got the lead away from Mostave, and Zach Palmer is trying to come through with him as well. Side by side through the chicane, and Zach Palmer will elbow his way through. That was brilliant driving by Jordan Taylor. I'm not entirely sure how he managed to make that stick, but I think a big part of it was down to Alex Mostave leaving him plenty of space, which is the right thing to do, and now it's brought everybody else into play as well. On board with Luke Sintler, that's CJ Morgan ahead of us, and they have both caught the leaders now to make it a leading group of 5, but Jordan Taylor with one of the moves of the season there around the outside at turn 1. Fantastic stuff. So Sintler then sitting in 5th position. Grandstand view of all of that off in the distance, but he now wants to try and join in the fun as well if he can. Through Barcroft Corner towards the braking zone, another really bumpy off-cambered braking zone into Sunny, and you're braking whilst turning the car, which is one thing that these little Citroen Saxos really don't like. Very short wheelbase, very stiff rear suspension, very easy to lock the rear brakes going into a corner like that, and the drivers all doing really well to avoid that happening. They're definitely learning how to drive these cars with every week that goes by. The driving standard's getting better, but also we're seeing fewer mistakes, fewer drivers just losing control of their car and braking, although that was a little bit too late on the brakes for Luke Sintler. Gives CJ Morgan a headbutt, who passes it on to Alex Mostave, and it's poor Mostave who comes out of that worse, really. Got nerfed out wide by CJ Morgan, but CJ, not his fault either, really. 2 white cars settle back in line, but that will drop them now a little bit of time to the top 2. You can see Zach Palmer to Alex Mostave is now up to a 2nd, and so it's now really down to these 3 to try and work together to reel in the leading 2 once more. Over the curbs through Hawthorne, this never-ending right-hander. It's another thing to be wary of, I think, here tonight. Croft is a pretty difficult circuit on tyres, a very abrasive surface, but also a track with lots of these long, fast right-handers. Not quite as extreme as Thruxton, where we will conclude our championship, but it does wear out that left front tyre. We've heard drivers say on numerous occasions this season that the tyres towards the end of the race do start to give up on you slightly. So let's see who is pacing themselves and who's able to continue that really quick pace at the end of the race, who perhaps falls back in the latter stages. Jordan Taylor then back to the lead. James Sherrington continuing to have an eventful race. He's on the inside of Josh Salvadori now and claims 11th position. So Sherrington recovering after that first corner spin. The other car that went off at turn 1 was Harley Connolly, wasn't it? He's caught Jensen Bell in the background, so even after pointing the wrong way and ending up in the barriers, Harley Connolly is not last, because Charlie Constable is unsurprisingly in the pit lane after hitting the tyre stack on the opening lap. but Harley has caught the back of the train, and this has really been the frustration, I think, for Harley. He's shown good speed this season. He has at no point been off the pace, but just doesn't seem to be able to avoid the worst of the issues. Finds himself 6th in the championship and within 12 points of the top 3, actually. It's very, very close from Mostav, Taylor, Stannard, Connolly, Jensen, Petters, and even Jamie Sherrington, all kind of within a couple of points of each other. So likely to see a little bit of chopping and changing of the order by the end of tonight, I would say. Through Clervaux corner goes that midfield scrap. We're into the middle part of this race now as well. Things just maybe starting to settle down. Gaps at the front are all pretty static. Zach Palmer sort of staying with Jordan Taylor, which is interesting. Maintaining that 1 second gap back to Mostav. That was James Sherrington. And Clervaux corner has not been kind to him tonight. That one, I think, might have been self-inflicted, though. Not sure what happened to him on lap 1, but he did seem to arrive backwards already then into the first corner. And that's easily done again with that rear axle. So easy to lock the brakes and find yourself pointing the wrong way in a hurry. Oops, Lewis Stannard out wide through Tower. He has fallen behind Levine Kishore in the recent past, so Levine up into 6th position now. Lewis Stannard dropping down into 7th, but that slipstream quite powerful, so as long as you're capable of running within a few tenths of a second of the car ahead, the slipstream takes care of the rest and should keep you with them. It can be difficult to run in the slipstream though. You're arriving at corners a bit quicker than you expect, and that perhaps is what led to that slight off for Stannard through Sunny. Carried a bit too much speed into the first right-hander. Now that will drop him a couple of car lengths back. Absolutely no separation though between these two, Luke Sintler and CJ Morgan, who is losing touch with the top 3. Alexander Mostav on this lap has taken half a second out of Zach Palmer, who's lost about half a second to Jordan Taylor. So is this Palmer making a mistake, or is he starting to run into some tyre dramas? He was pushing hard, of course, at the start of the race to get into P2. Alexander Mostav led early on, but Jordan Taylor got back ahead of him. Taylor with a 48.1. Look at that, half a second quicker than the cars behind him. So it's not necessarily that Palmer is going slowly, it's more that Taylor's going really quickly. Mostav put in a particularly good lap as well. So the gap's ebbing and flowing slightly. But one common theme here is that CJ Morgan is not having his strongest night. He's 4th. It's not a disastrous performance, but we, I think, have spoken to CJ after every single race this season because he's never really been off the podium. Like that change here tonight. Championship-wise, of course, Riley Bishop is nearest rival. Well, Riley is all the way down in 9th place. Alexander Mostav is 3rd in the championship, but some 23 points back. So it's certainly not a disaster, this, for CJ. He's outscoring his nearest rival. His next nearest rival is only a couple of places up the road. In fact, 1 place up the road. Luke Sintler looking to change that now, maybe. The number 11 car could not be any closer to CJ Morgan as he goes through the Jim Clark S's. Now, you can, if you're feeling brave, you can launch an attack up the inside into Sunny, but Luke Sintler sensibly decides not to. And in fact, it looks like CJ made a small mistake there, ran a bit wide. Luke got sideways, but that was actually a nice bit of rotation into the corner, whereas CJ Morgan's car was understeering. And again, that perhaps suggests that CJ is starting to run out of front grip a little bit. Might now yield an even better opportunity at some point for Luke to find a way past. Through the final complex of corners they go, and Luke Sintler can visibly carry more speed into these turns, can't he? Did he pop it up the inside into the hairpin? He does not. Because I imagine these cars are pretty much at full lock as it is through there. As soon as you start tightening the entry line and going up the inside of somebody, making it even harder to get around the corner. Across the line they go again. That time around, it was a 48.1 for the leader, 48.2 for Palmer in second, 48.8 for Mostav, 48.9 CJ Morgan, and for Luke Sintler. So, really, Taylor and Palmer, the class of the field at this point in the race, really distancing themselves from this 3rd, 4th, 5th place group. Levine Kishore, by the way, in 6th, he's not really catching them. He was a 10th or so quicker than these 3. He's still 3.5 seconds back. Now, Sintler this time is definitely close enough to have a go down into Tower Corner. He's got the toe. There's a gap on the inside that CJ Morgan is not really defending. Now he moves to the middle of the road to cover, and Sintler sends it to the outside, but he's way too late on the brakes, loses the rear of the car, stamps his right foot on the accelerator to save it, and will rejoin, still ahead of Levine Kishore, but only just. He's lost his momentum as well, and has dirt on the tyres, so I think Kishore may well go through into the Jim Clark S's, which he does. But, well, Luke Sintler was nearly ploughing the farmer's field there. He got very close to going off the track altogether. Well, he did go off the track, but he was nearly outside the circuit boundaries, so wide did he go. And just caught out a little bit there, unsighted I think he was, because CJ was positioning the car really cleverly in the middle of the road going into Tower. Defended the inside line, yes, but I think it blocked the line of sight slightly for Luke. That perhaps was why he missed the braking zone by quite so much. To 8th place now, Riley Bishop ahead of us, Will Crudson behind us. Your tour guide now around Croft is Nathan Jensen in 9th position. Look at the way the cars are sliding into the corners. One thing the drivers can change during the race is their brake bias. At the start of the race, they'll have that wound forward to try and stop some of that rear end locking. But now that the front tyres are starting to go away, the car's getting more understeery. The drivers will have to wind that bias back. That's what's giving them that nice little bit of sideways action into the turns. Without it, you'd really struggle to get the car turned in at all. Jensen then gapping Crudson slightly, who didn't have a great run through the hairpin there. Josh Salvadore now pulling up behind him. As they head for Clervaux corner again, full commitment over the curb, big bump on the apex. The back of Nathan Jensen's car is trying to overtake the front at every opportunity, isn't he? He's really got that car set up oversteering. It's a fixed setup in this championship, but as I said, a couple of little things that the drivers can tweak to their liking and adjust during the race. And Nathan Jensen looking to be getting quicker with every lap that goes by. Gets a good run on Riley Bishop, but again, he's only presented the outside line for Tower. He needs to avoid doing what Luke Sintler did a lap ago and braking too late. That is very late and a little bit too late, but manages to keep the rear end in check at least. Cuts back to the late apex, carries good momentum out of Tower. You can see that the damage was done at the apex. Riley Bishop has gapped him and actually carried slightly more speed off the turn anyway. So remains in 8th position. This really the best of the battles on the track right now. The leading group all pretty well spaced out. Got Luke Sintler and Lewis Stannard 6th and 7th, who are quite close together, but this battle pack of 4 cars has got action written all over it because Riley Bishop is struggling to pull away. Will Crudson is taking some very interesting lines through some corners, again running wide there through Sunny. Nathan Jensen clearly on the attack, wanting to move through if he can. 5.5 minutes to go in this 20-minute race at Croft. The Grazzi Motorsport driver, the body language of that car says attack, 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 but it's just so difficult to find a way past here at Croft. There are 1 or 2 obvious overtaking points, and as long as you defend well into them, it'll be very, very difficult to pass. Proven to be the case so far in this group, it seems. First corner they go again. Jensen then in the wheel tracks, but just can't quite get close enough to have a real go. I think his best chance is down into Tower. Let's see whether he can make that move work. It really starts here with a good run through Hawthorne. He's had such a good run that he's almost climbing into the boot of Riley Bishop's Citroen Saxo. Arguably got a bit too close, actually. That cost him momentum through the chicane, and Riley just starting to gap him slightly down the back straight. So Jensen is going to be presented with really only a late lunge as an opportunity to pass into Tower. The inside isn't defended, and that's because Riley Bishop was confident enough that Jensen was too far back, which proved to be the case. Josh Salvadore in the background at the inside of Will Crudson. That is a change for top 10 as well. 10th place for Josh. Will Crudson fighting back, pulls to his right-hand side into the Jim Clark S's. Now, you can go side by side through here, but you've got to leave each other space, which they just about do. And this is some really good wheel-to-wheel action now. Will Crudson trying to get back into the top 10, side by side through Barcroft. Fastest part of the track, this, into the most difficult braking zone of them all. And Salvadore is too late on the brakes and finds himself out in the dirt. So Crudson does go back through into 10th position. Positions the car nicely through the exit of Sunny out as well to try and block the run that may have been coming from Salvadore on the exit. In fact, they are overlapping slightly into the left-hander, but I think Crudson should be okay for now. Oh, well, gets a big sideways moment, though, through the second part of that corner. Almost lost control completely. Quick hands there from Will. Salvadore sees a gap on the inside, though, and he's going to try and go back through. They'll lean on each other a little bit. That was just about acceptable, although Crudson will argue otherwise, I'm sure, because he was levered aside rather there by Josh. Just fall back in behind him. That's been going on. These two have got even further away from them. Look at that. They were about 2.5 seconds quicker than Salvadore and Crudson as they were battling. Nathan Jensen still cannot find a way past Riley Bishop ahead of him, and Riley really needs to try and hang on to this. From a championship perspective, this is not, so far, a very good day for the man second in the points. But at least 8th place scores a point more than 9th, and every point is going to count here for Riley. This time, though, Nathan perhaps timing it better, gets the good run out of the chicane. He's on the outside into Tower Corner, though. We've seen that this can be perilous. Got to be careful on the brakes. They're leaning on each other, squeezing into the braking zone, and Nathan Jensen can't go right round the outside. Also, really clever driving there from Riley Bishop, though, to position the car on the apex, just park the car on the apex, and didn't allow Jensen to get the switch back. Means Jensen just had to breathe out of the throttle. That robs him of his momentum, climbing sort of steadily uphill here through the Jim Clark S's. Camera angle's not necessarily showing that, but it is a gradual incline out of Tower. That's why your exit speed through there is so important. Whilst this is going on, by the way, something of equal significance happening towards the front of the field is that Zach Palmer is starting to run out of pace, isn't he? Alex Mostav has closed right back in on him, and Mostav will know the importance of trying to score well here. He's already outscoring championship leader CJ Morgan slightly. He's outscoring Riley Bishop by even more, but he would like to get into second place. 22 points for second, 20 for third. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, appears to belong to Jordan Taylor, race leader. So he's taking that bonus point and had the bonus point for fastest lap. So maximum points could be going the way of the race leader here. Go through onto what should be the final lap of racing, and it's all about the fight for second place, really. Kishaw still running in 5th. I spotted him running wide in the background through the complex, but he's still there in 5th, ahead of Luke Sintler. Actually, through the first part of this lap, Mostav just dropping back ever so slightly from Palmer. Of significance, because they are heading down into Tower. If Palmer doesn't have to defend, which he won't, then that's the biggest danger zone negotiated, if you like, for Zach. Slides the car into that off-cambered right-hander. This is where Mostav closed in a lap ago, and again gets a good exit there from Tower. Seems to have better traction off the corners. And if you are struggling with those front tyres, then it's perhaps the second half of the lap where that is really going to show. So Zach Palmer not out of the woods just yet. Runs a bit wide out of the Jim Clark S's. A major advantage gained there, though. Lewis Stannard, meanwhile, on the tail of the Sintler and Kishaw battle. This is for 5th, 6th and 7th positions as they race towards the Sunny Complex for the last time, and Stannard has a peek up the inside of Sintler. Surely isn't quite close enough, though, and Luke Sintler knew it, turned in, and managed to stay clear of the number 19 car. As they make their way towards the complex, though, that one is certainly not concluded just yet. Jordan Taylor, though, well on his way to a race victory. And we are getting more and more drivers now challenging for podiums, pole positions and race wins, and it is going to be a light to flag run to a maximum points haul for the JT Racing driver. Pole position, fastest lap and the race win here at Croft for Jordan Taylor. Fantastic performance that. Oh, there is one more lap, I beg your pardon. So they just crept through them. Beg your pardon, one more lap here at Croft then. Jordan Taylor must have crossed the line there with hardly any time left on the clock. So they timed that just to perfection to get the 12th lap in and to confuse me, which is easily done, let's be honest. So good news, really. It means we get one more lap of action for all of these little pockets of activity up and down the field, although Mostav has dropped away from Palmer in that scrap for second place. So attention turns once more to the 8th and 9th place battle here. Nathan Jensen is ahead of Riley Bishop now, but Riley Bishop is back up the inside into Hawthorne. There is inevitable door-to-door contact, but in fairness, Riley was there, and I think they were both just trying to squeeze into the narrowest part of the track. And that little bit of shoulder barging brings Josh Salvadori back into play. Luke Sintler, by the way, did manage to stay ahead of Lewis Stannard on the last lap and is now crawling all over the rear bumper of Levine Kishaw for 5th towards the Jim Clark S's. On board with Sintler, he's on the outside line. He's got the overlap though. Kishaw needs to be careful not to turn into the right-hander too tight, which he does. And now here comes the run from Lewis Stannard up the inside. 3 wide towards Barcroft. That will never work. Stannard sensibly backs out of it, but Sintler doesn't and tries to stay to the inside of Kishaw. Into Sunny in. Levine Kishaw standing his ground on the outside line, and now into the second of the Sunnies. He will stay in front. Sintler just finds a gap to slot in between them, and the positions for now stay as they are. But again, I think there's going to be some more action through the final sequence of corners. Into the left, into the right they go. Sintler peeking up the inside line, commits to it, gets sideways. Kishore is off, he's in the barriers almost. And up the inside of both of them goes Lewis Stannard. Stannard gets past Sintler. He will now try to get past Kishore through the final turn. It's all arms and elbows through the hairpin for the final time. Jordan Taylor has now crossed the line to take the checkered flag. Zach Palmer second, Alex Mostav third. CJ Morgan is fourth. Levine Kishore will just hang on to fifth, ahead of Lewis Stannard, with Luke Sintler in seventh place. That was a fantastic battle. They somehow ended up in the same order. Well, no, Stannard did get past Sintler, didn't he, on that final run to the flag. And speaking of the final run to the flag, here comes Nathan Jensen and Riley Bishop, and it will be Jensen, I think, by a nose, who just manages to hang on to 8th position. So Nathan Jensen 8th, Riley Bishop 9th, that changing around on the final lap as well, with Josh Salvadori keeping a watching brief in 10th, ahead of Will Crutzen, Harley Connolly, Jamie Sherrington, and Jensen Bell, with Charlie Constable, unfortunately, the only retirement. I'm quite glad we got that extra lap at the end of the race then, because it gave us not much change right at the front of the field, but some of the best side-by-side racing we've seen all season long between Levine Kishore, Lewis Stannard and Luke Sintler. The man of the moment is Jordan Taylor. Pole position, lights to flag victory, and he claimed the fastest lap as well. And Jordan Taylor, as he brings the car back to the pit lane, will be very, very pleased with that. In fact, he joins us again here in the commentary box, so we can now have another chat with Jordan, this time though as a race winner. And well, Jordan, the start didn't quite go to plan, but once you got back in the lead, you never looked back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been a long time coming, hasn't it? Like, I've been close at Brands. It's been a long time coming. The start, I think the nerves got to me, but I focused and I managed to get Alex around the outside, and it was just making sure I was consistent from there.
Absolutely, and talk us through the move that you made into that first corner, because it caught me by surprise. To go around the outside of someone through there is not an easy thing to do, and it really required a lot of respect to be shown to you by Alex as well. So I'm sure you want to give him a shout out too. Brilliant,
massive thanks to Alex for leaving me some room. But I got a better run. I gave him a little nudge at the corner to try to give him a little boost down the straight. I had a better run in total down the straight, so he moved over to the middle. So I knew he'd be tight on the inside, so I just braked a bit later than I would, and just somehow car gripped luckily, and I just managed to go around the outside and drove off from there. And just, it was massive thanks to Alex for not hitting me, but it's just racing, and like, it showed respect, which is good.
Absolutely, a fantastic move, and something that bodes well for race 2, because you were one of the only drivers really able to make overtakes like that in that one, and you'll have quite a few more to do from the back now. Are you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, certainly. As it's such a long lap and the long straights, I think it would just be about having the momentum, and if I can get into that groove and set them 47s, I think I have a chance at first.
Sounds like a plan. Well, Jordan, so far so good. Maximum points out of that first race. Best of luck for race 2.
Cheers, Andy.
So, Jordan Taylor, the race winner. Zach Palmer, though, was the one who came home in second place, despite coming under some pressure in the closing stages. Zach joining us now. Zach, congratulations on second, and you also benefited from that little battle between Jordan and Alex, didn't you? Talk us through how you got into second place.
Well, we're going into that corner. I saw them side by side. I thought, I see a gap come in, and there it was. Went for it, and then quite nerve-wracking. You're coming around to the last few laps, and then he's gaining, pulling away, and yeah, very lucky that I got P2.
Yeah, what was that all down to then, do you think? Were you starting to struggle with tyres a bit towards the end?
I think it was mainly pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's understandable, really, because Alex was reeling you in pretty quickly. But, you stood up to that reasonably well and held on to second place. Now, though, the pressure builds, doesn't it, for this reverse grid race? How confident are you for this one?
Still quite confident. Just hope that there's not much contact. Hoping I can find quite a few gaps. And, yeah, fight my way through the pack.
Good stuff. Zach Palmer, congratulations on second place. And a very quick word with Alex Mostav before race 2 gets underway. A little bit disappointed there, Alex, to end up in third place. It could have been at least second, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have been second, but I don't know. It was a very good move from both of them going around the outside, and well, there's still the second race to go, so we don't know what will happen then. I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, we'll let you go and enjoy that second race. Hopefully, get a chance to chat to you again later. But congratulations on getting onto the podium.
Thank you.
So there are top 3 finishers then from race 1. We have to rush through those interviews because race 2 is coming straight up. We don't hang about here at the Junior Saloon Car Championships official E-Series. Full reversed grid, minus any non-finishers. So Charlie Constable, who wasn't running at the flag, will still, unfortunately, have to start at the back, where he'll be joined by our top 3 drivers from race 1. Jordan Taylor, 14th. Zach Palmer, 13th. Alex Mostav, who we just spoke to, will start from 12th. At the front of the grid, Jensen Bell and James Sherrington. Bell on the left, Sherrington on the right. As we look at it, then the 2 yellow cars, the yellow and black, is Harley Connolly with Will Crudson alongside. One more race to go then. Do let us know who's impressing you so far. Certainly a very impressive first race there for Jordan Taylor. Is he your candidate for driver of the round? Well, let us know in the YouTube chat. We will take that into account when it comes to making our decisions. And of course, we're likely to see some more standout performances in race 2. So if you want to wait until the end of the broadcast, that is absolutely fine. This second race is going to be pretty intense, I think. We had a reasonably clear run through the first couple of corners in the first race. 2 cars did go off, but could have been a lot worse given how tight that first sequence of turns is. Now though, with the reverse grid race, quick drivers at the front, quick drivers at the back, some drivers at the front who perhaps are not quite on the ultimate pace just yet. This could be the recipe for a very exciting opening lap or so. Red lights are on, Jensen Bell on the inside, James Sherrington on the outside, the lights go out, and it's a pretty even getaway from both of the front row drivers. Charlie Constable away really well from the back, looks squeezing up the inside of Jordan Taylor and Zach Palmer towards turn 1, and they're leaning on each other slightly. Taylor ended up almost in the barriers there. They are 4 and 5 abreast further back. That is not going to work. I'm convinced that we're going to see cars off the road here, and yes we do, and that's either Mostav or Morgan sideways. I think it was Mostav, and he is pointing the wrong way. Through will go his teammate CJ Morgan, getting through that unscathed, but Alexander Mostav tagged sideways. Sintler was involved, Stannard was involved, so was Levine Kishore, and that involves some of the front runners from race 1 who just tried to squeeze too many Citroen Saxos into too small a space at the first corner. Sherrington leads down to Tower for the first time by nearly a second already over Harley Connolly second. Up the inside goes Jensen Bell, that's for 4th position at the expense of Josh Salvatore, who now gets leaved aside by Nathan Jensen. The gloves are off, and that's CJ Morgan thinking about going up the middle of the pair of them. I think as the championship leader, he did the right thing in backing out of that, because they're still side by side and trading virtual paint in front of him, and he could well pick up the pieces if it all goes wrong. He doesn't want to be a part of it going wrong though, does CJ? Just trying to position himself in a spot that will keep him out of trouble. Into Sunny we go, on board with the Chandler Motorsport driver, whose teammate Alex Mostav has just been off at the first corner, but rejoined in 11th place. Through goes Jensen on Salvatore, but Salvatore snaps straight back up the inside through the second of the Sunnies. Jordan Taylor, we can see in the rearview mirror there, diving up the inside of Will Crudson as well. So the race 1 winner is also making some good moves, and despite a bit of shoulder barging on the run to turn 1, he got through the first corner unscathed. CJ Morgan into the back of Salvatore, that was a little bit rough, and Josh won't like that. He's lost his momentum. To the outside goes Taylor, and this could be important. Jordan Taylor wanting to get CJ Morgan as quickly as he can, runs out onto the grass but gets decent traction off the turn, and Jordan Taylor, I think he's going to go through into 6th position. Yes he does. CJ Morgan has to let him go, so Jordan Taylor from 14th on the grid is 6th at the end of the opening lap. And when you can compare that to Mostav and Palmer, who remember joined him on the podium in race 1, well they are outside of the top 10 still. In fact, that is Mostav and Palmer. There's a car off the road in front reversing back into Will Crudson. That was James Sherrington, and that was a little bit clumsy, I'm afraid. Will Crudson unfortunately ends up off the road and now rejoins as part of a 4-way battle that includes Mostav and Palmer. Palmer straight lines the chicane, Mostav is sideways, clatters into the side of Lewis Stannard, I think that was. Levine Kishore up the inside of the pair of them. This has been a bruising opening lap and a half of racing, and they're not done yet. Stannard bouncing off the side of Charlie Constable's car into Tower Corner, and then Sintler gets into the back of him as well. Kishore up the inside, bang, 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 off goes Constable, tries to bully his way back on the track, but they're 3 wide again now towards the Jim Clark S's, and I think perhaps the blood is starting to boil now in this group as drivers just keep on leaning on each other at parts of the track, you really don't want to be doing that. Still, they are 3 wide. They just went 3 wide through the Jim Clark S's and all live to tell the tale through Barcroft. That is Stannard up the inside of a recovering Mostav, I think, as Mostav tries to go around the outside of him into 12th place. I think he'll do it, especially if Will Crudson helps, which he does by going for a gap that never really existed and punting Stannard onto the grass. Right, deep breath everyone, because CJ Morgan and Jordan Taylor are back at it. They both caught Nathan Jensen, and CJ Morgan is back past Taylor and past Jensen, who goes the other side of the tyre stack. Jordan Taylor to the outside of him into the hairpin, and Jordan Taylor's back ahead of CJ Morgan. Those two trading positions about 3 times in the space of 2 corners there. The lead, by the way, belongs to Harley Connolly. He is avoiding all of the drama and is 2.1 seconds up the road already. Riley Bishop second, Jensen Bell third, Jordan Taylor is 4th, and really on a mission here. 14th to 6th on lap 1, 6th to 4th on lap 2, but after some very energetic battling with CJ Morgan, who now is struggling to keep up with him already. But of course, every time Jordan Taylor catches a car ahead of him, that car starts to hold him up, although not on that occasion, because he makes very quick work of Jensen Bell, gets to the inside through the chicane. Jensen tries to fight his corner, but just doesn't quite have the momentum, and so does fall off the podium now. And all of a sudden, a double race victory for Jordan Taylor is absolutely on the cards. Remember, Jordan coming into tonight was down in 4th place in the points and a long way off, some nearly 40 points off the championship lead. Needed a good night here at Croft, and a good night is what he is having. CJ Morgan there, right round the outside of Jensen Bell, down at Tower. A little bit of contact on the exit, almost some more contact as they squeeze together into the Jim Clark S's. But CJ Morgan does manage to go through. Paul Lewis Stannard's having a nightmare race in the end. He's been off again through Tower, and Charlie Constable rattling off the side of Alex Mostav's car. Mostav, who spoke with a little bit of trepidation, I sensed, when I asked him about race number 2 earlier on, and I think had every reason to have that trepidation, because neither he Zach Palmer have really made the progress through the field that they would have hoped for. There goes Jordan Taylor, though. He really is, and he's got up the inside of Riley Bishop now for 2nd. So Jordan Taylor, absolute man of the match for me so far. This has been a sublime drive, and he's into 2nd place already. Further back, it's anything but sublime. That is Jensen Bell getting squeezed out wide. He's got the inside line for the hairpin and just slots in behind Josh Salvadori. Jensen has got Zach Palmer and Nathan Jensen behind him. Getting my Jensens confused there. Jensen Bell 6th, Nathan Jensen in 8th, trying to join in the fun as well, and Zach Palmer blinking in and out of existence there. Oh, in fact, in the pit lane, Zach Palmer. What was that all about? Did he knock the button that sent him back to the pits? He suddenly vanished from the track, unless I was seeing things, and found himself in the pit lane along with Charlie Constable, who for the 2nd race in a row is going to be a retirement. But that is big news for Zach Palmer, the driver who had been on the podium in race number 1, is not going to be able to recreate that here in race 2. And breathe. Didn't serve his drive-through for a jump start, we're hearing, for Zach Palmer. So he was given a drive-through penalty for a jump start and did not come in to serve it. That is why he has been removed from the race. So Zach Palmer didn't accidentally head to the pit lane. That was something that race control decided had to happen, and he will not be a finisher then. That's a shame. So, dare I say it, things just calming down a fraction now that we are nearly halfway through this race. And Harley Connolly, 2.3 seconds up the road. Now, on the previous lap was about 3 or 4 tenths slower than Jordan Taylor. That was the first lap that Jordan had been in clean air, of course. So the gap was 1.8 seconds, or is 1.8 seconds. It's coming down again on this 4th lap of the race, I think. See what it's like at the end, what the lap times are, but you can see the delta on the top left corner of your screen creeping down by the corner. Levine Kishore here trying to creep round the outside of Jensen Bell. There's a little bit of a touch. Kishore almost runs off the road, steams back up the inside line, and somehow Jensen Bell and Luke Sintler narrowly avoid the tyre stack that claimed Charlie Constable from race 1. Actually, Jensen Bell managing to fend them both off at the moment as Kishore runs very wide onto the grass, exiting the hairpin. Towards Clervaux corner again. Connolly then the leader. Taylor 2nd. CJ Morgan 3rd. Riley Bishop 4th. Then Salvadori, Jensen Bell, Kishore, Sintler and Mostav. So Alex Mostav still only 10th then after his various issues at the start of the race. And again, just as he was starting to put himself back into the championship mix. Looks like he's going to have a disappointing race too, but he may benefit from all of this if they keep on driving like that. Levine Kishore finding a gap that I didn't think existed, but he's squeezing through and has gone past Jensen Bell. That was a good bit of driving actually from Levine, and Luke Simpler will come through with him, I think. Yep, gets the slipstream and drags past Jensen Bell. Further up the road, Josh Salvadori having one of his better races, and he's not willing to give up any positions without a fight, is he? Riley Bishop, another driver in need of a good result, really, from a championship point of view. Not able to go around the outside there through Tower Corner, and so the red and black car of Josh Salvadori stays in front for now. The lap times I was going to look at were Connolly versus Taylor versus Morgan. Well, Connolly did a 49.2. It was a 48.2 for Jordan Taylor, so a full second quicker. And then somewhere in the middle, CJ Morgan 48.7. So both Taylor and Morgan lapping quicker than the leader Harley Connolly. If Taylor catches Connolly and then Connolly comes over all defensive, there is still a way in which CJ Morgan could get into the fight for the race win here. That could get very tasty in the next few minutes. So too already is this battle though between Sintler, Bell and now Alex Mostav, who does see an opportunity to gain a couple of places here. Jensen Bell, the first of his planned victims. As they turn through the complex of corners, does he dive up the inside into the hairpin? Well, Jensen quite cleverly there again positioned the car to the middle of the road, didn't come over to the racing line until the very last second just to try and deter Mostav from launching one at the inside. So Mostav having to settle for 10th for now. So 10.5 minutes to go. Through the first corner come Josh Salvadori and Riley Bishop. That time around, Harley Connolly to Jordan Taylor comes down to just under 0.6 of a second, because it was another 1.1 seconds faster that time for Jordan Taylor. At that pace, he's going to make very quick work of Harley Connolly, and he should get him on this lap. In fact, it could even happen down into Tower Corner, which is where they're headed. There are the top two. Jordan Taylor not quite close enough, but Harley running a little bit wide. And honestly, if Harley is sensible here, I think he will let Jordan Taylor go. The race win would be lovely, but I just don't think that it's a hill worth dying on, so to speak. He is going to likely be overtaken by Jordan Taylor anyway. And if they really start battling, then CJ Morgan could close in and rob Harley of a second place. Because I actually think that if Harley sat in behind Jordan Taylor, that would give him a bit of extra pace from the slipstream. He could follow Jordan as well and learn from the driver who clearly is the fastest out on track here tonight. And maybe he could keep CJ Morgan at arm's length, and I think that's what's happening maybe, because he doesn't bother defending the inside into the complex. Jordan Taylor is up the inside line, and just after the halfway mark, Jordan Taylor completes the back to first challenge almost as quickly as we've seen from anyone this season. CJ Morgan did it in the race that never was at Silverstone earlier this season, but that was another really impressive first 10.5 minutes or so of racing from Jordan at a track where it's much more difficult to overtake, it must be said, than Silverstone, and he has hit the front with still 9 minutes to go. So 6 laps completed, Jordan Taylor to the lead. Oh, that is James Sherrington pointing the wrong way. Not for the first time tonight, had that off in race 1, and a couple of little incidents at the start of this one too. Down to 13th and last he will go, having I think picked up a couple of places over the last lap or so. Alex Mostav, meanwhile, just can't get past Jensen Bell, can he? So Jensen Bell putting up a stern defence here, and the Chandler Motorsport driver will be mightily frustrated with the way this race has gone. Showed good speed in qualifying, led briefly in race 1, and was kind of pinning his hopes on this second race, wasn't he? Having lost the opportunity to win that first race. His chance, he felt, may well come in the reverse grid, but that's not really been the case. The inside here or Riley Bishop goes Nathan Jensen. Nathan Jensen having a good showing here, and Riley Bishop just struggling. Oh, leaning on each other on the exit. That nearly went wrong. But Jensen goes through. Josh Salvadori is not that far ahead in 4th place. Nathan Jensen will have ideas of stealing that position before the flag. Yeah, Riley Bishop not getting on well with Croft. It is one of those tracks, though, that you either love or you hate as a driver. It's a really difficult track. I would actually go so far as to say the hardest track that we race at this season. It's just so demanding, so unforgiving as well. If you make a small mistake, then it will punish you. And I think some drivers perhaps driving a little bit within themselves tonight just to make sure that that doesn't happen. Maybe that's what Riley's been doing, but just hasn't quite gelled with this track. And Riley Bishop hemorrhaging points, unfortunately, to those that count in the championship. Although with Mostav struggling in this race. He might not lose second in the championship. We'll have to wait until the maths are all done at the end of race 2, but he might just be okay. Of course, going to lose some more points to CJ Morgan, though. I can tell you after race 1, still leads the way, but now by 24 points over Riley Bishop in second, and Bishop was only 5 ahead of Jordan Taylor, who has moved into third ahead of Mostav. So Jordan Taylor is really the one who now could move up to be CJ Morgan's biggest challenger. He is 21 points, I think, no, 31 points off the championship lead. Meanwhile, Alex Mostav around the outside of Jensen Bell, still struggling to get into 9th position. Can he go right round the outside at Hawthorne? That's a risky move to make, but it will give him some more momentum through the chicane, as long as Jensen Bell leaves him the space, which in fairness he does. And so Mostav through into 9th, but nearly 3/4 of the way through this race, Alex Mostav would have been hoping, I'm sure, to be a bit further up than 9th place, and 8.8 seconds behind 7th. And Luke Sintler is not likely to be caught here by Mostav, I don't think. So, towards the Jim Clark S's they go. Things just starting to spread out a little bit at the front of the field. Now Jordan Taylor 2.9 ahead of Harley Connolly. Now CJ Morgan is catching Harley, but not that rapidly, actually. On the previous lap was only about 4 tenths quicker. He is 9 tenths behind, 8 tenths let's call it, as they come to the conclusion of this lap. 5.5 minutes to go though. I think he will catch Harley. Harley might put up a bit more of a defence against CJ than he did Jordan Taylor, because the closer to the end of the race you get, the more point, if you like, there is in defending your position a bit more heavily. The benefit there is, he's unlikely to bring other people into the battle. So there they go, look, Harley Connolly comes across the line, CJ Morgan in 3rd position, a 48.9 for both of them. So actually Harley Connolly responding there with his fastest lap of the race so far. Jensen Bell is in the pit lane. Not sure what happened there, but Jensen Bell's race perhaps is done. And Alex Mostav having just gone past him, going back ahead of him, which tells me that Jensen had fast-tracked back to the pit lane, teleported back, so that is an instant non-finish if you do that. When you're out on circuit, then that will, you're out of the race, you're not allowed to rejoin if you teleport back. So he will join Charlie Constable and Zach Palmer as non-finishers. James Sherrington moving up into 12th, but still last in the race. Right, we're on board with CJ Morgan. 3rd position right now, so as it stands, dropping 5 points to Jordan Taylor, although Jordan has the fastest lap to make that 6 points. And as I said, coming into this race, Jordan Taylor on 109, which is 29, not 31, 29 points behind CJ Morgan, so that gap would come down to, what, 23 as it stands. Still plenty though, and in fact it's going to be slightly more than that, because CJ Morgan goes up the inside of Harley Connolly, who does stand his ground this time against 2 wheels on the dirt between Sunny in and Sunny out, and CJ Morgan manages to slip through. So now only 4 points being dropped by CJ compared to Jordan Taylor. And that is again another example of exactly what I've been saying about CJ really for the last couple of weeks. Even when he's not been the fastest driver on the track, he's just got this knack for scoring points, for getting podiums. Just missed out on the podium in race 1, but, you know, still scored well, still extended his championship lead, actually, over Riley Bishop, who you can see in the turquoise-coloured car is a little bit more a part of the race this time around. Second behind the Josh Salvadori and Nathan Jensen battle, so if they start really getting into each other, then we could still see Riley gain some places. Yeah, CJ Morgan has been Mr. Consistency this season long. A fair bit of winning in the first couple of races, and rarely is he outside of the podium places. He's fought well in this race as well, stayed out of trouble in true CJ Morgan fashion. And, it looks as though he is going to claim a 2nd place here, 5.3 seconds adrift of the race leader, which is not going to be catchable, I'm sure, in this one. Meanwhile, Luke Sintler on the tail of Levine Kishore. I haven't seen as much of Levine as we might have hoped in this pair of races tonight at Croft. Levine Kishore have been quick, but of course got involved in the turn 1, lap 1 kerfuffle in race 2. Pretty quiet first race, but Levine getting out of trouble generally. Will now be hoping to hang on to this 7th spot as they head for Barcroft. Hard onto the brakes. Very bumpy braking zone, as we've said, through the right-hander. Plenty of curb used on the inside at Sunny Out as well. Not something you'd want to do in real life at Croft. Those curbs are pretty vicious. So here in the sim, they're a little bit more forgiving, perhaps. Will Crudson, meanwhile, sliding his way through Sunny In, is trying to break back into the top 10. Lewis Stannard ahead of him. These are the last two cars still running because Jamie Sherrington has retired now as well. So we are down to 11 cars running. It's been a bit of a race of attrition, this, with 4 retirements. That's got to be something like the record for this season so far. Will Crudson is in a position maybe to break into the top 10. Doesn't matter how many cars finish. If you can get a top 10, it's still well deserved, because you were still there at the end of the race and others fell out. Seen a lot of potential out of Will Crudson, actually, in his couple of appearances so far this season. He can eliminate some of the errors and not put himself in some of those more vulnerable positions. I think he's got a good chance of some decent results. So these two, Luke Sintler and Levine Kishore, who make their way down the back straight on one. Now, I'm not going to be too confident in saying this is the final lap. I think it will be the final lap because the pace has been slightly slower, at least in the first half of this race. So I think we'll end up with 11 laps, but I'm going to try not to get caught out by that again. Kishore will be hoping it's the final lap because he's starting to struggle a little bit now to keep Luke Sintler behind. Racing driver holding on to 7th by the skin of his teeth here, immediately pulls to the middle of the road out of the Jim Clark Estes to defend. You don't really want to defend into Barcroft though. It's the next braking zone here at Sunny where you want to keep that inside line covered. It's a bit wide onto the grass, but that you can get away with. Make their way towards the complex where I think Jordan Taylor is negotiating the final couple of corners for the final time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, this will be the final lap, I think. The checkered flag awaits then for a perfect score for Jordan Taylor. Lights to flag victory from pole in race 1 with the fastest lap, and this one from the back of the grid with the fastest lap yields a second victory of the season for Jordan Taylor to put himself that little bit closer in the championship. CJ Morgan scores well for second though, Harley Connolly third, Josh Salvadori fourth, Nathan Jensen fifth, Riley Bishop sixth, and Levine Kishore just hangs on to 7th position ahead of Luke Sintler. Alex Mostav in 9th position, and Lewis Stannard will complete the top 10. And after an eventful race, we end up with a fairly familiar podium, although great to see Harley Connolly up there, actually. That's probably the big story there, isn't it, outside of the championship contenders. Harley Connolly getting himself onto the podium for, I believe, the first time this season, so really, really good stuff, that from Harley. And only a second and a half behind CJ Morgan in the end. Jordan Taylor is the one celebrating because he has done something that no one has done so far this season, and that is score the perfect points haul. 2 race victories, 2 fastest laps, and the pole position as well. And Jordan Taylor will join us now in the commentary box, and I'm sure is very, very pleased with the way that that his evening has gone. Jordan, couldn't have gone much better, really, could it? Are you surprised, though, at the sort of progress you were able to make in the early stages in that one?
Yeah, well, I tried staying out of any sort of contact at the start, but I got clipped on my rear end. Luckily, I was able to save it. And then a couple points where I had to avoid some action, some people potentially spinning. But all round, I think it was a good race. I slowly picked my way through the pack. Took a while to catch Harley, but I eventually got there, got past him, and then just pulled a gap from there. Oh my God. Oh.
Well, what did you see of the action at the start then? Because obviously there was a lot kicking off at turn 1. You seemed to come out of that a little bit better than some of the others. Was that luck, or did you manage to place your car well through those first few corners?
I mean, I was hesitant to going in there. I avoided some, got clipped, had to go across the grass, rejoined back where I was, and just carried on from there, to be honest. I think I came out not too bad to others, but it could have been better.
Yeah, well, certainly wasn't bad, was it? It gave you that opportunity then to move forward and claim the victory, and we think maximum points from tonight. That was exactly what you needed for the championship, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How confident are you that you can do a similar thing in a week's time?
But I don't know, because some drivers are better at some tracks, some are worse at other tracks.
That is very true. And of course, we're heading to Alton Park, another tight technical track, though, in a week's time. Not that dissimilar to Croft. So I've got high hopes for you, Jordan. But
Thank
regardless,
you,
congratulations. The perfect performance tonight. Well done.
Thank you, Andy.
Jordan Taylor then, very, very happy indeed, I'm sure, with his results. Second place, and I think satisfied probably with that result as well. Our championship leader, CJ Morgan. And CJ, the only time that I've been able to talk to you tonight, normally we can't get rid of you here in the commentary box, but by your very high standards, a bit of a frustrating night, but a fourth and a second place is not bad, is it?
I'm actually very happy with the results because unfortunately, leading up to the event, I've had a lot of real life commitments like college and work. So I was only able to actually hop on the track for the first time yesterday at about 10:30 at night. So I've only had one day to get ready for the race, and I feel like that's definitely the best I could have done. And especially with Riley finishing P9, I think it was in race 1, and P6 in race 2, that definitely helps me a lot in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is particularly impressive. A track like Croft is not an easy one to learn, and you didn't give yourself a lot of time, it sounds, to learn it. How have you enjoyed Croft, though? It's very different, isn't it, to any other track that we raced at this season?
Yeah, it's very unique. It's quite hard to get used to, especially because of all of the bumps on like every corner. So you miss your braking point by like a couple centimeters and you lock up and you're far past the corner, but I just tried to keep it at a consistent pace that I knew I could do. Didn't want to push it because I didn't want to mess up my laps, and P2 and P4 is probably the best I could have asked for in the circumstances.
And from a championship perspective, really more than enough, actually, because Riley didn't have a particularly good night. Jordan has, but it's still going to be the best part of 30 points behind. Are you starting to consider maybe this championship is yours for the taking, or is it still too soon to relax?
I think it's a bit too soon to relax. We've still got 3 more rounds to go, so hopefully it is mine for the taking, but you never know, especially with it being quite close at the minute. All it takes is one DNF and it's all open again.
Very true, very true. The pressure is on for CJ Morgan, but CJ, congratulations. Good to have you on the podium in that second race, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you again next week.
Hopefully. Take care, Andy.
Thanks, CJ. CJ Morgan then, second place, manages to extend his championship lead over the course of the 2 races. Third place finish in that one, though, and this is an interview I've been looking forward to having, because Harley Connolly, it's your first time, I believe, in the commentary box this season, led much of that race, and I was really impressed with how sensibly you approached the battles with Jordan and CJ in the latter stages. You must be really, really happy with that third place.
Yeah, I'm dead happy. Didn't really expect that, to be fair. I had a bad, and then I somehow, with the reverse grid, got back. I didn't want to take out Jordan and CJ, so I played it quite safe, let him pass. But it went quite well.
That was sensible as well, because they were so quick that, you know, battling them would have just cost you more time to everybody else. So you managed that race really well, especially given what happened in race 1. How difficult is it to keep the faith almost when the first race, I mean, it was the very first corner, wasn't it, that you went off?
Yeah, it's quite annoying. It's had up in a couple of races, but thankfully the reverse grid helped me out second race, and yeah, it paid out in the end.
It can always be a bit of a confidence booster getting that first podium. Of course, we head to Alton Park now next week, another reasonably similar track perhaps to Croft, a bit hillier but very technically demanding. So do you think now that this can give you the boost that you need to get a couple more podiums before the season's out?
Maybe, hopefully, but we'll see how it turns out. Try and learn the tracks a bit more, and yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Harley, congratulations. Great to have another new name on the podium, and hopefully not the last time this season. Well done.
Thank you, cheers.
So they were your podium finishes. I can announce now as well that a decision has been made on driver of the round. And, well, really, there was only one candidate for it tonight, I think, wasn't there? And that is Jordan Taylor. Maximum points, a really professional performance across both races. And I think most people will agree that Jordan Taylor is a very, very worthy recipient of the Driver of the Round award. So the pair of FreeM sim racing gloves will be heading his way. And a big congratulations to Jordan, who quite literally sweeps all the prizes tonight here. Croft, and he'll be hoping to do that again in a week's time, I'm sure. This is what it does to the championship standings, though. All of that effort for Jordan Taylor, and he's still 25 points off the championship lead, but he does move up into second place now. And I tell you what, even if CJ Morgan does prove to be a bit tricky to catch, look at the fight we've got for second. Jordan Taylor and Riley Bishop separated by just 4 points, 11 further back to Alex Mostav, who arguably should have been closer, really, had he not had that incident at the start in race 2. Then it's Lewis Stannard 5th, just 2 points ahead of Harley Connolly, who is 4 ahead of Nathan Jensen, and then a bit of a gap back to Levine Kishore, James Sherrington, and Zach Palmer, who will close out the top 10. Zach Palmer kicking himself, I'm sure, for the drive-through penalty or the jump start penalty that he didn't serve in that second race. Luke Sinclair dropping out of the top 10. Jensen Bell also lost a bit of ground here tonight. So did Charlie Constable with a double DNF, unfortunately. But at the front, it is getting tight. And as CJ Morgan said, we've still got 3 weeks of racing to go. We head to Alton Park on the 23rd of March for the next round of the championship. Another old school track. I may be a little bit biased, being based only half an hour or so away from there, but it is my personal favourite track on the calendar, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the young drivers of the Junior Saloon Car Championship's official E-Series take to it. Then we're off to Snetterton, and it all concludes at Thruxton. If we have a close championship fight going into Thruxton, then that will be a night of racing not to be missed. It should be perfect for these little Junior Saloon Car Championship Citroen Saxos. Well, good stuff tonight here at Croft then. The second half of the season beginning in style. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you all again next week. A big thanks again to all of the crew behind the scenes for making this happen. We have thoroughly enjoyed bringing the racing to you tonight. We'll be back again, same time, same place next week at Alton Park to see whether CJ Morgan can further extend his championship lead or whether the likes of Jordan Taylor still may yet have an answer for him. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you then.